In a world of unpredictable markets and constant economic shifts, one question remains. How do you build wealth that works while you sleep? Welcome to What Pros Do, the podcast where we sit down with top real estate investors and financial freedom seekers to uncover the strategies, tools, and mindsets that turn uncertainty into opportunity. This isn't theory. This is what pros do. Let's build a life on cash flow, freedom, and future-proof wealth.
Hey guys, welcome to What Pros Do. My name is Ray. My wife and I are currently at Glacier National Park in Montana, and I wanted to create a video today, and I wanted to talk about what it truly takes to create an Airbnb. And we're gonna have my wife ask some of the questions that I feel are the most relevant in starting your Airbnb journey. And for us, we have two Airbnbs. We have one where we're kind of using our house hack in our own home, and we have another one that's currently out of state. So we're gonna kind of share a little bit of our journey and what it takes us to manage our Airbnbs. So why don't we start off with the first question, Reese? What's our first question?
Our first question is about scheduling cleaners.
Scheduling cleaners. I think a lot of people have, they're intimidated with the fact that is their cleaners going to do a good enough job, maintaining their Airbnb, especially if you're going out of state. Your cleaners are your lifeblood of your business with Airbnb because they're going to be your eyes and ears, especially if you're going to be managing from a distance. For us, we like to personally use independent cleaners. Obviously, you can also use companies that have a full-blown team, but we feel like we are able to build a better connection with independent cleaners. So we use a little bit of mixture of both, because when you are using independent cleaners, they're not always available. But the reality is, if you are managing an Airbnb, you should have a team of cleaners on your staff anyways, right? For us, I would say on average, we have roughly 3 cleaners, just so we have backups. And if somebody has any kind of scheduling issues, we can kind of adapt and change things up the way that we need to. All right, Reese, what's our next question?
How do we handle maintenance?
Maintenance is huge. For our out-of-state property that we're managing, you really have to build a crew that's going to be able to help you. And one of those things that I feel is very important is you're going to have somebody who handles electrical work, plumbing, maybe some kind of handyman service that can kind of handle maybe a furniture that's kind of loose or broken. Any kind of drywall fixes. You're really going to have to put a team together. And I wouldn't think that it's that much different from owning a long-term rental, because generally, unless you're doing all the work yourself, you're generally hiring contractors out anyways. So there's not too much difference in creating a team that is going to help you out if you have those kinds of issues. The one thing I will say is it does take time to build a team that's going to help you out with all the things that you need. But I think if you're capable and you do your networking, I think you could put together a team that will manage your Airbnb from afar.
Another important team member is a landscaping team.
That's right. One of the crucial things is having a good landscaping company. Or an independent worker, right? For us, I feel like exterior work is a lot easier than interior. The reason I feel exterior work is a little bit easier is because, for the most part, you can use companies like Thumbtack or even Facebook Marketplace to really get the work done, right? I wouldn't think that it's as crucial as somebody working on electrical or plumbing inside your home. So I feel like it's actually a lot easier to get those kind of things done. But managing that from a distance, I think a lot of people get worried about it. But for the most part, if you're communicating with your staff, like your cleaners, they can keep an eye out for you, right? there's been many of times where our cleaners will contact us and be like, hey, the grass is a little too long. You might want to get somebody out here, or they kind of point something out that we might have not seen. So I feel like those are easy enough things to manage from afar.
Do you think that there's a difference if a property has a lot of exterior outdoor features that are sort of a draw to that particular property?
Yeah, like definitely, every property is different and a lot of different landscaping. Our property, our Airbnb from out of state, has a lot of trees. And with that, you have widowmakers, you have branches that could fall on people, and just overall debris, right? And I think for every property, you have to kind of train your landscaping company to kind of adapt to the needs of that property. And I think that's also the big thing is, double checking their work, using your staff and your team to kind of monitor and make sure that they're doing the kind of job that you want them to do, because that's going to, affect your guest experience. You know what I'm saying?
What about the plan for trash and recycling?
Oh my gosh, this was such a funny situation, right? Like, I had made such a huge deal in trash and recycle. I don't know why. Like, I just felt like, oh my God, now I gotta go hire somebody completely different to go handle trash and recycle, because it's easy when it's at your house, right? If it's at your house, you can easily go and take the trash and recycle. But these little simple things become a little bit more tricky and difficult. But to be honest with you, we just asked our cleaners if they could do it. And sometimes it works out great that, they happen to be cleaning the house at that time. But also, sometimes it doesn't. And we have to go ahead and have them come on a separate day and put the trash and recycle out and then bring it back in, right? And all you have to do is really compensate them for it, right? You got to compensate them for their time. You got to make it worthwhile, right? Because this is somebody that you're wanting to build a long-term relationship with. And that's why I feel it's important to have an independent cleaner, because if you're working with a cleaning company that is a full-blown staff, and they ain't got time to take the trash out for you. So that's why I think you need somebody with a little bit more flexibility. And that's why we use independent cleaners and cleaning companies.
Our next question is about cameras.
Cameras, those are one, you can't have interior cameras in Airbnb. That's a big no-no, right? So we definitely don't have any security cameras inside our Airbnbs. Even in our storage closet where we keep all the towels and linens, we just don't have any cameras at all inside our units. But we do have cameras on the exterior, and primarily for security, ensuring that guests can get in. But also it's a great way if you have a property out of state to kind of keep track of, the things that you need to keep track of. And one of the ways that we use our cameras is we use the Ring cameras. Subscriptions roughly about $100 a year. And that's, I feel like, for the security of your place, making sure guests can get in, making sure people have access, but also being able to keep an eye. I think it's a small price to pay. It does cost a little bit with the Ring camera units. They're not that cheap, but nowadays you can go on Facebook Marketplace and pick these things up secondhand. So that kind of helps offset the cost a little bit, right? But definitely, I think having security cameras is definitely helpful. I'll give you just one little thing, right? We have, whoa, a bug's getting me. But we have a grill that's kind of outside, and we have a grill cover. And we noticed that the grill cover keeps flying off, right? And it's just kind of nice to be able to ask, either our cleaner or our landscaper to just be like, hey, can you just get that back on there? And that's the little kind of helpful things that we have with the cameras. But yeah, nothing too crazy, keeps things simple.
What do we need to know about utilities for an Airbnb?
Utilities. Definitely for utilities, since it's an Airbnb, just like if you were to living in your own home, you have to have all the essentials, right? You're going to have your electricity, your gas if you have it. Yeah, all those things, internet, all these things play a role in an Airbnb, and it's something that you're going to have to compensate for when you're doing your numbers and calculating the profitability of your unit. So for us, we just make sure that we calculate for it and we have things that are going to make sense, right? We're not going to go for the most top of the line, like as if we had it in our own home, like for internet, but we also want to make sure that the guests are going to be comfortable, so we get a decent internet speed. But for the most part, just know that that's going to be a part of your expense in an Airbnb.
How do we handle mail at our out-of-state Airbnb?
Yeah, that was an unexpected surprise, right? Because when you have it in your own home, you can easily check the mail, right? But as you know, we generally get junk mail, or we get utility companies mailing us. We try to do as much as we can through online and paperless billing and stuff like that, but you're always going to have some type of mail coming through on your property. And for us, we just ask our cleaners as a part of their cleaning procedure to go check the mail, and then we have a little container that we have them put it in, and if it's anything important, that's something that we need to address, we just ask them to let us know, and they take a picture of it or open it up for us, whatever we need done. But for the most part, I did get a little concerned about trying to manage, somebody checking the mail, but it's one of those things, like once you have a system in place, it's not as scary as you might think it is.
What is important to know about guest communication on Airbnb?
Yes. Definitely this is something to think about. It's totally different from a long-term rental, right? I would say in our long-term rentals, we're not communicating with them as frequently as we are in Airbnb. Our guests, generally, they're needing check-in procedures. They're needing all the details on how to get in and out of the house, how to lock it up, and all these things. And for us, we've created a system where it pretty much does auto replies on these kind of things. And for the most part, our communication with our guests is essentially questions they have for us that are little one-offs. For example, hey, we'd like to bring an additional guest over, or maybe we have a little bit more people than we had originally planned. And these are the kind of communications, yes, you do have to handle them case by case. For us, we only have 2 units, so we're not using virtual assistants just yet on these 2 units, but it's something that we are looking into as we grow our portfolio. But I would say if you're managing 1 or 2 units, I would say it's very manageable. The hardest thing for us is the time differences, right? We're Pacific time, our properties in Michigan, so it makes it a little bit different because it's 3 hours ahead over there. So it makes the timing a little off when you're communicating. But once again, it's nothing that you can't work around.
What would you like to say about problem guests?
Yes, just like anything, right? If you had a long-term rental, you're going to have problems with long-term rentals and the people staying at your long-term rental. Well, you are having more frequent guests at your Airbnb. I think one of the things that we were concerned about when we were first getting started was, oh my gosh, somebody's going to, ruin our home. Somebody's going to cause a fire, all these little crazy things that you think about. But for the most part, if you're doing your due diligence, right, of filtering the right people to stay at your property, and there's multiple ways you can filter. One of the ways that you can filter is by your pricing. Your pricing alone could easily push any kind of riffraff out of your home, but also just stating your house rules and being very clear with those house rules and making sure guests understand that, like, you're going to hold to those house rules and you're going to hold them to it, and that communication is nice and clear. As far as the problems we've had as managing with problem guests, yes, you're going to have the entitled guests, and it is completely different because a long-term rental, you can easily have them follow your rules, but when you're doing hospitality and you need reviews, you kind of have to maneuver a little differently, right? And essentially, you can't just say no to everything. You gotta be customers right? Because you are trying to get great reviews, and those reviews essentially help you out in booking future guests. So what we've learned from our Airbnb experience is really not having a blanket rule on everything, but really addressing and understanding each guest and what they're asking for, and seeing if there is a way for us to accommodate them and them know that we're going the extra mile for them, right? Because if somebody understands that you're going the extra mile, they're less likely to just give you a bad review, because you're not just saying no to their requests, you're finding a way to make it happen. So that's the one thing I will say is a big learning curve, and we're still learning. By no means are we pros at it yet, but it's definitely something we're getting better at.
What would you like to say about getting paid on the Airbnb platform?
The getting paid on the Airbnb platform, I would say it's really easy, right? You set up your account. For us, we have an LLC through our platform. So we created an LLC just for the Airbnb business, and that kind of simplifies things. Me being a business owner myself, owning multiple businesses, I would say the Airbnb platform really streamlines everything. There's not much you really have to think about. You insert your information, your direct deposit, and then they give you the form that you need at the end of the year to send to your accountant, and you're all set. So for the most part, I'd say that their system is really efficient.
Our next topic is an important one about the calendar and pricing.
Now that is one thing, is something that you're going to have to account for in an Airbnb is you do have to look at your calendar and your pricing, right? For us, we've learned just through other peers who run Airbnbs, they use a application called Price Labs. And Price Labs has been a pretty game changer for us, because we're not just essentially guessing or looking at other Airbnbs to compare. We're using a platform who's really calculating and doing all these things for us. And we just essentially pick our price target that we're thinking, and it will adjust on peak or low seasons, comparing other Airbnbs in that area. And then on top of that, Price Lab does a great job to showcase, the occupancy in all these other properties. And you can kind of compare, hey, why is our occupancy a lot lower this month in comparison to our competition? So you can really gauge on how well you are doing in the market.
What would you like to say about creating systems?
Yes. That is one of the things that you're going to have to do in Airbnb is you're going to have to create systems. Just like with any business, if you have a long-term rental, I'm sure you have systems as well, signing leases and all that. But on the Airbnb side, it does get a little tricky because there's a lot of things you have to think about. And I'll kind of go over the things that you have to think about, right? You're going to have systems for your cleaners. You're going to have systems for your landscapers. You're going to have systems for the one-offs, right? You're going to have things that break, and you're going to have people in place or systems in place to ensure those things get fixed in a timely manner to prevent you from getting a bad review. So these are the kind of things that you will need to think about if you are going to go into Airbnb space, but it's nothing that you can't work around, right? I think a lot of us are pretty savvy, and we can go to places like YouTube to find and piggyback off other people's systems, and it's not as hard as you may think it is.
In addition to creating systems, what about creating inventory for supplies and linens and cleaning supplies?
Yes, this is a big one. Making sure you have enough linens and inventory for anything that might get messed up or go missing. We definitely have redundancies on this, especially when your cleaners are coming over there to change sheets, beddings, and all those kind of things. It makes it a lot easier when you maybe have 2 to 3 sets of those items. So therefore, they can make turning over your property a lot more efficient, right? And then also, if you have a guest checking in and maybe a towel got ruined or the guest used it incorrectly, you're not put in a situation where the next guest is not having such a great experience. So definitely inventory and accounting for those things. I would just say stay on the side of safe and having a lot of redundancies.
What would you like to say about making a test run of your unit?
Okay. 100% you should stay at your Airbnb before you launch it. There's going to be things that you think you accounted for, but until you actually stay in your Airbnb, sleep on each bed, sleep in each bedroom, you're not going to realize. And I'll give you an example. My wife and I, we flew down to our property in Michigan, and we made it a goal after we had it all furnished and everything. We made a goal to sleep in every single bed, use every single bathroom, use every single appliance, right? And we found things that you just would have never guessed unless you were actually staying at the property. One of the things were we were sleeping in one of the bedrooms, and we noticed that the sun comes up right through that bedroom at a certain time in the morning, and we didn't have blackout shades or blinds. And if you weren't trying to wake up too early in the morning, you were going to get this beam of sunlight right in your face, right? And how are you going to know that, right? Are you going to have your cleaner sleep in the bed? Well, yeah, you could probably potentially do that, but I think you are going to have more attention to detail, making sure that the bed is comfortable, making sure that the house is warm enough, that the furnace is working correctly, Those are the kind of things that we caught, that we started realizing, hey, there's something going on with our furnace. We might have to change the filter because this isn't getting warm enough. And those are the kind of things that you're going to catch. And if you don't do that test run, well, then your guest is going to do that test run for you. And then that is not going to be good, right? Because when you're first starting out your Airbnb and you get bad reviews, that's not going to look good. What you need really strong reviews when you're first starting out. And I want to kind of touch on that. When you're first starting out, you are going to have to take it a little bit, right? You're going to have to go above and beyond because you're a new business. And as a new business, it's crucial to have a good representation of your business. Well, guys, I know that was a lot. Obviously, I can go into a different video where we can dive into each details of what we discussed today. But hopefully you enjoyed our episode of What Pros Do Today, and thank you for tuning in.